A stunning piece of Middle-earth art just exploded across Reddit with nearly 3,000 upvotes. But what caught my attention wasn't just the beautiful artwork, it was the fascinating conversation happening in the comments. Now here's where it gets truly fascinating. The community split into camps, some fans absolutely loving the artistic vision, others saying it felt too post-movie, and many caught somewhere in between. But this isn't really about one artist's work. This debate reveals something much deeper about how we, as Tolkien's readers, navigate the relationship between the professor's written word and the visual interpretations that have grown around it. What I find particularly compelling about this discussion is that it mirrors a tension Tolkien himself grappled with throughout his life. So let's explore what's really happening here. And I think you'll find there's something beautifully complex about how our community engages with Middle-earth art. Let me share what our community is actually saying, because their voices reveal something wonderful about how deeply we care about Middle-earth. The top comment, with 78 upvotes, simply said, "I love this style so much." That genuine enthusiasm, that's the heart of why we're all here, isn't it? But then we see this thoughtful response with 18 upvotes. "I'm seeing a lot of film inspiration here. It's well done, but then also a bit off at the same time." Now there's the scholar in me that finds this absolutely fascinating. This viewer is wrestling with competing visions of Middle-earth. And here's another perspective. It's too post-movie for me. 13 upvotes. That's our book purists speaking, and their concern is entirely valid. What strikes me about these responses is that they're all coming from the same place. A deep love for Tolkien's world and a desire to see it honored. But they're measuring honor by different standards. The enthusiast sees beautiful art that captures Middle-earth's magic. The analytical viewer recognizes technical skill, but feels something doesn't quite align. The purist wants fidelity to the professor's original vision. Now, here's where it gets truly interesting. I think all three perspectives are not only valid, but necessary for our community. This debate isn't new, and it certainly didn't start with Peter Jackson's films. Tolkien himself wrestled with questions of visual representation throughout his life, and his thoughts on this evolved in fascinating ways. In his letters, particularly Letter 210 from 1958, where he reviewed a film treatment, Tolkien expressed deep concerns about visual adaptation. He worried about his work being treated carelessly and recklessly, with no evident signs of any appreciation of what it is all about. Yet he also understood the power of visual storytelling when done thoughtfully. But here's what I find particularly compelling. Tolkien was also an artist himself. He created those wonderful maps, painted scenes from The Hobbit, and even attempted to visualize some of his characters. Yet when it came to detailed physical descriptions in his prose, he was often deliberately restrained. Think about Gandalf's appearance in the books. Tolkien gives us impressions, the grey robes, the pointed hat, the staff, the sense of power and wisdom, but he leaves enormous room for our imagination. This was deliberate. In his essay on fairy stories, he wrote that visual presentation imposes one visible form, while literature works from mind to mind and is thus more progenitive. There's something beautifully symmetrical about this approach. Tolkien created what we might call imaginative space. Enough detail to ground us in Middle-earth, but enough openness for each reader to complete the picture in their mind's eye. Now, let's ground ourselves in what the professor actually wrote, because this is where we can find some fascinating insights into our current debate. Take Rivendell, for instance, a location that artists love to depict. Tolkien describes it as a perfect house, whether you like food or sleep or storytelling or singing, or a pleasant mixture of them all. He mentions the valley, the rushing water, the sense of timelessness. But the architectural details, he gives us impressions rather than blueprints. When Frodo first sees Rivendell in the Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien writes about firelight on carved figures, the sound of elvish voices, and that sense of being in a place where time moves differently. He's painting with emotional colors rather than precise architectural measurements. Or consider how he describes the Shire. Rolling green hills, round doors, gardens, the sense of comfortable abundance. But again, it's the feeling of the place that Tolkien emphasizes, that pastoral peace, that harmony between the hobbits and their landscape. What's fascinating is that when Jackson's films gave us specific visual interpretations, Bag End's particular shade of green door, Rivendell's specific architectural style, Gandalf's particular look, these became the default visualization for millions of people. Not because they contradict Tolkien, but because they filled in the spaces Tolkien left open. This is where our current debate gets really interesting. When an artist like Raoul Vital creates Middle-earth art, are they working from Tolkien's text, from Jackson's interpretation, or from that fascinating blend of both that now exists in our collective imagination? Here's what I think our community discussion reveals. We're not really debating whether book or film influences are correct. We're exploring different ways of honoring the same source material. Tolkien, in his delightful complexity, seemed to understand this. In his essay, On Fairy Stories, he writes about the importance of what he calls sub-creation, the idea that when we engage deeply with a work of imagination, we become participants in its ongoing creation. Think about what this means for visual artists. When they depict Middle-earth, they're not just illustrating, they're sub-creating. They're taking Tolkien's imaginative foundation and building upon it, just as we do every time we read and picture the scenes in our minds. The beautiful thing about Vitale's work, and this applies to any thoughtful Middle-earth art, is that it can honor Tolkien's vision while offering its own interpretation. The question isn't whether it matches exactly what we pictured when we first read the books, but whether it captures something true about the spirit of Middle-earth. And here's where I think our community's passion serves us well. The book purists keep us grounded in Tolkien's text. The visual enthusiasts remind us that imagination can be shared and celebrated in new forms. The analytical viewers help us think carefully about how different interpretations relate to each other. We need all these voices. They're not in conflict, they're in conversation. So where does this leave us with our Reddit discussion? I think it brings us to something Tolkien would have appreciated. The idea that a truly rich mythological world can support multiple interpretations while maintaining its essential character. What makes art Middle-earth art isn't whether it precisely matches Jackson's vision or fills in Tolkien's descriptions with photographic accuracy. It's whether it captures what we might call the eucatastrophe of recognition, that moment when we look at a piece and feel, yes, this is Middle-earth. Some of us feel that recognition when art hews closely to the book's descriptions. Others feel it when art captures the emotional resonance they experienced watching the films. Many of us feel it when skilled artists like Vitale find ways to honor both traditions while adding their own vision. The wonderful thing about our community's debate is that it shows how deeply we care about getting Middle-earth right. But perhaps right is bigger than any single interpretation. Tolkien created a world large enough to hold our different ways of seeing it. The professor gave us the foundation, the languages, the history, the characters, the themes of courage and friendship, and the struggle against darkness. How we visualize that foundation can vary while still honoring what he built. There's something beautifully hopeful about this. Every time an artist creates thoughtful Middle-earth art, every time our community discusses it passionately, every time we wrestle with questions of interpretation and fidelity, we're proving that Tolkien succeeded in his greatest ambition, creating a mythology that lives and grows in the hearts and minds of its readers. So the next time you see a piece of Middle-earth art that sparks debate in our community, whether it feels more book-inspired or film-influenced, whether it matches your personal vision or challenges it, I'd invite you to ask not just, is this accurate, but does this help me love Middle-earth more? Because that's what the best Middle-earth art does, regardless of its visual sources. It invites us back into the world we love, helps us see it with fresh eyes, and reminds us why we fell in love with the professor's creation in the first place. What do you think? How do you navigate the relationship between text and image in your own experience of Middle-earth? I'd love to continue this conversation in the comments. After all, the best discussions about Tolkien happen when we bring our different perspectives together. If you're still here and enjoying this discussion, please consider giving us a like or subscribing to the channel. That helps the YouTube algorithm recognize that we're creating content you value, and it means we can continue bringing you these deep dives into Middle-earth. Until next time, keep exploring the wonders of Middle-earth. This is Middle-earth Unveiled. Thank you for watching.